Things are about to get a whole lot more colorful here in my backyard. Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings, and today is the day the team is out here getting it done and turning this into just a colorful landscape. So many SunPatiens are getting planted here today. We primarily put just SunPatiens here in our backyard because we know that they do fabulous. They grow in our full sun areas, they'll grow in our more of our part sun areas, and the nice thing is they don't need fertilizer. SunPatiens are an annual that really prefer not to be fertilized. You find if you fertilize them, they start to slow down on flowering a little bit. So if I can plant a plant in the backyard that's this far away from the house where I don't have to worry about bringing out the fertilizer, it's a beautiful thing. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this is happening. So right now they're planting up the butterfly garden, and the thing I like with the butterfly garden is white SunPatiens. And the reason why we do white in this space is because white really illuminates, especially at dusk and later on in the evening. So I can look up from my house on my deck there, and the white SunPatiens really create a framing effect to this garden. It's just a nice white frame, and it just draws the eye back into this little space here in the garden. So we are planting these up with a 8-inch hanging basket, and the reason is because for us, we can grow these up in the ceiling in the greenhouse and get them quicker, get them bigger quicker, and it's space that we don't necessarily need for any of our production purposes. So they're going through here and spacing them about 18 or so inches apart. We have in the past planted them a lot closer together, but I like to let them kind of grow into the garden opposed to being just instant border. So by spacing them about 18 inches apart or so, by about 4th of July, they should be nicely touching each other and filling in the space quite well. So we do have tools that they're using, although I don't know that these guys are using it. We have augers, but they also have these little knives. Oh no, they did do the auger. So somebody came through earlier with the auger and dug all the holes for them. So now all they have to do is just remove the plant from the hanging basket, stick it in the hole, and just kind of tap in the dirt around it and get it all nicely snuggled in. I didn't know it, but yesterday actually, the bark crew came through. So we have all of the bark blown into the landscapes here at the house as well, because there's just so many areas that need to be done, and that's just the quickest, most efficient way is to have the bark blowing truck come and get the job done. So when I woke up this morning, I was like, whoa, wait, what happened to the landscapes? They're so brown everywhere. Well, it was because of the mulch, which is good. We like the mulch because it keeps the weeds at bay, also helps hold in the moisture a little bit, and again, just gives the garden a really nice finished look. Now, ideally, I don't know if they'd rather have planted before or after the mulch was in. Sometimes it's easier to plant before the mulch is in because then you're not dealing with the mulch, but I prefer planting after the mulch is in because when they blow the mulch in, it does kind of do a little bit of a toll on some of the foliage of the plants. It's so hot as it comes through the tube, and we notice that sometimes it does scorch the leaves a little bit. So planting once the mulch is in place is by far for us the better way of going. And then once the hole is dug, they can just kind of pull the mulch back around the plant and makes the garden look just nice and finished off. So they are getting it done in here. This is the SunPatien white, as I mentioned. And then in the back here, we are doing the rose Glow SunPatien. I feel like I never stick with one color in this area of the garden. I feel like it's always a change up. I mean, there's definitely a lot of colors I like. I did do purple in this space once, and it was a little too dark, just because, as you can see, it's about noon right now and it's still pretty shaded in this area. So the purple didn't really give me the polka color I was hoping for. So by using like rose or lighter pinks or brighter pinks, it does a better pop in the garden. So here too, we're spacing them about 18 inches or so apart. First guy's going through, digging all the holes, and he's just setting the basket in the hole as a placeholder. And then the guys that we're planting, they'll come through next, and they will get them all nestled into the little hole. These we are doing about 18 or so inches off the edge of the border of the grass, and that's because I know how big these plants are going to get. they're going to get at least 18 and in some cases 24 inches wide, and that's without fertilizer. That's just the natural habit. And these are actually the compact SunPatiens. We don't grow any of the vigorous ones because they just get so big. Even these compact varieties get large, so I can't even imagine how big the more vigorous varieties get. So this rose glow is going to really create just a beautiful pop of color here. You can see we've got a lot of hostas in this space, and that's because this is more of a part shade garden. I did a video talking about how chartreuse or yellows in the garden really are important, and I think you can see it especially here today with the sun kind of poking through. You can see all of those plants that have more of the yellow shade on them and just how vibrant they look here in the landscape. So it just adds another color dimension before the flowers are really even blooming or in place here. Spacing about 18 inches apart to give us just this massive color. But basically you can kind of figure out math for yourself, measure your garden, figure out a hole about every 18 or so inches. You can go further, you can go 24 if you want. It just depends on, do you want a solid border look? Do you want to have plants that are spaced with a little bit of space between each of them? Everybody kind of has their own idea of how they want their garden to look. For us, I like to have a solid border because again, when I'm looking up from the deck, it's really nice to see this bright splash of color consistently throughout the summer. That is too why we like to add annuals into our garden, is because they do give you that consistent splash of color. Now perennials are great because I love how they cycle. There's always something different and interesting in bloom. But if you're looking for something that is just always in color, that's where it's important to poke a few annuals in here and there, just so you have always something going on. I know a lot of people I talk to, especially in the garden center, talk about how, you know, they're trying to transition into more perennials and shrubs, which I can appreciate because they don't have to plant them every year. But I said, you know, just make sure you're leaving just a couple spaces, because you'll want a couple spaces in the garden to be able to have that consistent color. So before they're planting out back here, they're getting in and doing a little weeding. This is kind of this is like kind of the worst area of the whole garden because we've got like this moss that grows between the rocks, but then you get clover and other weeds growing in between. So that's got to be kind of hand picked out. Up around this waterfall, that's no longer a waterfall. This has been inactive for over 10 years, but we still kind of like just how it looks here, kind of tucked in with all the foliage. There's a lot of weeds that have kind of crept in here over the years too, so they're getting in there and just getting all the weeds out. Another area of the garden that's quite annoying is back in this back corner where there is just a ton of weeds, and partially it's because it's not our garden, so it's our neighbor's, which is fine. He doesn't have to do anything, but the problem is all of these weeds, the seed comes blowing into our garden, so we're going to get in there and get all of that weed removed as well. That way it'll help with control over weeds getting into our garden, and ultimately be nicer, because that way the people don't have to do as much weeding every month or so when they come to visit. We're so excited to have this project checked off the list, and are also equally excited to show you the progress throughout the summer. If you're local here in the Grand Rapids or Greater Grand Rapids area, I highly recommend the Pro-Mow company. They have been fantastic doing all of the planting for us here today and at the greenhouse over the last few days, and we have just been so pleased with the team, the crew, and the work they've done. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.